Captain Jarek had always thought his life was predictable on the orbital station. He followed orders, checked reports, and ensured the crew did their jobs. Life was orderly, routine, until the human-alien treaty assigned him an alien secretary. He had read about the treaty in the archives, about joint projects with alien species, but he never imagined he would be personally involved. And now here he was sitting in his office, thinking of his next report, when the doors slid open with a quiet hum. She walked in, tall and graceful, every step smooth like she floated rather than walked. Her skin had a soft shimmer, pale with hints of green and silver. Catching the light of the station's lamps, her eyes were striking, glowing a deep emerald that seemed to see right through him. Her hair moved like liquid metal, flowing behind her as she approached. Jarek tried to hide his surprise, but his heart beat faster, because she had chosen the absolute worst moment to arrive. At that exact second, the emergency alarm screamed through the station. Red lights flashed, casting long shadows across the control panels. A warning appeared on the main console. A cluster of asteroids had suddenly shifted course, heading dangerously close. The station trembled slightly as the first debris brushes passed. Jarek's mind raced, calculating odds and risks, trying to remember the emergency drills he had run 100 times. But now he had someone else in the room, calm, composed, and completely unlike any human he had ever met. She moved toward the console with ease, her long fingers flying across controls that Jarek barely understood. The holographic displays changed in real time, numbers, charts, and trajectories shifting faster than he could process. She glanced at him, her voice soft but commanding. "Captain Jarek, we must act immediately." Her tone left no room for hesitation, no space for argument. Jarek swallowed, nodded, and followed her lead, despite feeling unsure and nervous. Every step they took through the station felt urgent, the hum of machinery and the shouts of the crew creating a tense symphony of chaos. They arrived at the main control hub, where the crew struggled to adjust the shields. Jarek noticed the panic in their faces, the hurried movements, the fear in their eyes. She ignored all that, focusing on the holographic panels, adjusting parameters with precision. The asteroids moved closer, and the station shook again, sending shivers through the metal floors. Jarek tried to ask, "Who are you exactly?" But the words caught in his throat as alarms blared. She barely looked at him, her eyes fixed on the calculations, and replied, "I am your secretary, assigned by the treaty, but now we must focus." Her calmness in the middle of danger unnerved him. She directed crew members with short, clear instructions, pointing at screens, tapping panels, and issuing commands. The station responded to her guidance, shields activating, trajectory lines changing. Jarek followed her instructions to initiate the secondary stabilization protocol. His hands shook as he typed the codes, pressed buttons, and waited for results. Time seemed to stretch as the asteroids closed in, seconds feeling like minutes. Then a tremor shook the station harder than before. Panels rattling, lights flickering. Crew members grabbed onto railings, faces pale with fear, but she remained steady, her green eyes glowing brighter, hands flying across the console. The shields shimmered, bending light, creating a protective bubble around the station. Jarek felt a strange sense of awe, watching her work like she controlled the very physics of the orbital station. Minutes passed, tension thick in the air, and finally the tremor slowed. Alarms quieted, lights returned to normal. Jarek exhaled, wiping sweat from his brow, trying to process what had just happened. She turned toward him, expression calm, almost smiling. "It is done." "Captain," he struggled to find words, stunned by her efficiency and the sheer speed of her thinking. What are you?" he finally managed, voice shaky. She smiled faintly, cryptic and confident. "I am here to assist, to guide, and to make sure humans do not falter where logic and instinct fail." Jarek realized in that moment that his life had changed completely. This alien secretary was not just a bureaucratic assignment, she was a force of nature. And she had walked into his life at the absolute worst moment. The station hummed softly now, quiet, but Jarek could feel a storm of challenges ahead. Every emergency, every mission, every decision would be shaped by her presence. He glanced at her, glowing eyes reflecting the console lights, and knew that the days of ordinary routine were over. The treaty had brought her to him, and now nothing would ever be the same again. The station had quieted after the asteroid scare, but Captain Jarek's mind was racing. He could not stop thinking about her, the alien secretary who had arrived at the worst moment. Her calm, precise actions had saved the station. Yet he knew little about her. Who was she really? And why had the treaty chosen him for such a strange assignment? He watched her move through the control hub, her presence commanding attention without a word. Crew members instinctively stepped aside, some glancing at Jarek with curiosity and awe. He followed her cautiously, still unsure how to behave around someone so unlike himself. She glanced at him briefly, and her green eyes seemed to pierce through his thoughts. "You have questions," she said softly. Almost as if she could read his mind, Jarek hesitated. "Yes. Who are you, and why am I assigned to you?" She smiled faintly, enigmatic and calm. "All will be revealed in time, Captain, but first, you must learn to trust me fully," he nodded. Realizing that trust was the only choice he had, the treaty had set these rules, and disobeying them could bring consequences far worse than a simple argument. She led him down a narrow corridor lined with metallic panels and soft glowing lights. He noticed her gliding over the floor with an almost unnatural grace, never tripping, never pausing. He tried to keep up, struggling to match her pace, yet she never looked back impatiently. They arrived at a small chamber, unlike any other part of the station. Holographic screens floated in midair, displaying star charts, alien languages, and diagrams of the station he had never seen. "This is where I operate best," she said, motioning to the panels. Jarek could feel a strange energy in the room, almost as if it were alive. His eyes widened as he saw calculations predicting asteroid movements, energy fluctuations, and unknown cosmic phenomena. He realized she understood things humans could barely imagine. "What are all these?" he asked, pointing at the holograms. "They are the patterns of the universe, Captain, the forces you cannot see," she explained. Jarek frowned, trying to grasp the meaning. "Patterns, forces, what does that have to do with my assignment?" She moved closer, her voice calm. "You're here to bridge gaps, to understand what humans and aliens can achieve together. The treaty is not just rules. It is a chance for cooperation, for survival, and for growth," he swallowed, realizing this was bigger than any mission he had imagined. His role was not just about command, it was about connection, and she was the key to that connection. Suddenly alarms blared again, though less intense than before. The station's sensors had detected an unidentified ship approaching rapidly. Jarek's heart raced, but she remained composed, eyes glowing softly as she analyzed the readings. "They are not attacking yet," she said, "but their intentions are unclear." Jarek glanced at the approaching ship, sleek and dark with no markings he could recognize. The crew scrambled, trying to prepare weapons and shields. She tapped the holographic panels, calculating trajectories, energy fields, and possible threats. Jarek watched in awe, realizing she could anticipate movements, not just react to them. Her knowledge was far beyond any human operator. The ship's communication channels opened, and a distorted voice spoke. "Human captain." "Prepare for inspection," it demanded. Jarek felt his stomach tighten, but she whispered, "Stay calm. Follow my instructions." He nodded, trusting her guidance despite the fear gnawing at him. She began entering commands, rerouting energy, adjusting shields, and preparing for an encounter that Jarek could not fully understand. Minutes felt like hours as they worked together silently, each movement precise, coordinated, and almost instinctual. Finally, she turned to him. "It will be fine if you act exactly as I say." He followed. Hands trembling, heart pounding, the ship docked, and the airlock hissed, revealing beings unlike any humans had seen before. They were slender, tall, with metallic skin reflecting the station lights, and eyes that seemed to shimmer like hers. Jarek realized the universe was far larger and stranger than he had ever imagined, and he was standing at the center of a treaty that could change everything. As the alien stepped onto the station, she whispered, "Observe, learn, and follow my lead." Jarek did, awed by her confidence and the power she seemed to command without words. She moved forward with authority, gestures simple but commanding, and the alien visitors paused, listening, understanding. Jarek realized she was not just a secretary. She was a diplomat, an interpreter, and a protector. The worst moment of his life had become the beginning of a journey he could not escape. He had no choice but to follow her, trust her, and face challenges that would test every skill he had. And deep down, he knew that nothing on this station or in the universe would ever be simple again. The alien visitors stood in the docking bay, tall and metallic, their eyes flickering like tiny stars. Captain Jarek felt a chill run down his spine, realizing how little he understood about them. The secretary moved forward, graceful and calm, her presence commanding attention from everyone in the room. Jarek followed her cautiously, unsure of what to say or do. The alien's leader stepped forward, voice echoing through the bay. Distorted but clear, "Human captain, we seek an audience." The secretary nodded politely, her green eyes scanning every detail, every movement of their bodies. "Follow me," she said, and the aliens obeyed without hesitation. Jarek marveled at her authority, wondering how someone so young-looking could command such respect from an alien species. They walked through the station corridors. Past blinking panels and rushing crew, Jarek struggled to keep pace, but she never looked back impatiently. He tried to ask questions, but she shook her head slightly, a signal to wait. She led them to the conference chamber, a room equipped with holographic displays and translation interfaces. The aliens entered, their forms reflecting the light, making them seem even more otherworldly. Jarek could feel tension building, his hands clenching at his sides. The secretary activated the holographic translator, and the room filled with alien symbols that transformed into words he could understand. The leader spoke again. "We are here to negotiate, but there are hidden dangers you must be aware of." Jarek frowned, unsure what dangers they meant. The secretary glanced at him, her eyes calm but intense. "There are factions in space that do not honor treaties," she explained. "Some see humans and their allies as weak. Easy to manipulate, they will attempt sabotage, espionage, and even attack. Your station may be their first target." Jarek felt his stomach tighten, realizing how vulnerable they were. He had thought his biggest threats were asteroids or system failures. Now he understood there were enemies lurking in the shadows. Waiting for mistakes, the alien studied the station's layout, nodding at the secretary's recommendations. Jarek watched in awe as she guided both humans and aliens, bridging the gap between their languages, cultures, and expectations. Her commands were clear, precise, and carried a weight that made everyone follow her without question. Suddenly, the sensors detected an anomaly in the outer hull, a small breach that should have been impossible. Jarek's heart raced and he looked to her, panicked. She moved swiftly, examining the readings, her fingers flying across the console. "It is deliberate," she said calmly. "Someone wants to test us, to see how prepared we are." Jarek felt a cold sweat, realizing the danger could come at any moment. The alien's leader narrowed his eyes, understanding the threat. But trusting her guidance implicitly, she turned to Jarek, voice soft but firm. "You must oversee the crew and ensure protocols are followed. Do not panic, even if they breach the station." "I will handle the threat." Jarek nodded, swallowing fear, realizing that his role was now to support, not to lead. The station hummed with energy, lights flickering, crew moving quickly to follow her instructions. Minutes felt like hours as she coordinated repairs, defenses, and communications. Jarek watched her work, impressed and unnerved by her skill. She seemed to anticipate every move, every danger, and her calmness inspired the crew. Even the aliens seemed reassured by her presence, a living proof that the treaty could succeed if guided correctly. Then a warning flashed on the main console, signaling an unknown ship approaching the station's perimeter. Jarek felt his chest tighten, knowing they had very little time to react. The secretary studied the readings, adjusting shields, weapons, and energy fields. She whispered almost to herself, "They are clever. Too clever, but we will not fail." The ship neared, silent and fast, attempting to avoid detection. Jarek realized it was not just an accident. It was an attack planned carefully. He followed her orders, helping crew reroute energy and monitor every movement of the intruders. The alien stood by silently, trusting her completely, and in that moment, Jarek understood the true weight of his assignment. He was part of something bigger than him, bigger than humans, bigger than treaties. He was in the middle of a web of politics, diplomacy, and danger, and the alien secretary was the key to surviving it all. As the intruder ship came closer, the secretary activated a hidden defense system, shields shimmering with energy. The unknown vessel slowed, sensors scanning, trying to understand the station's defenses. Jarek realized that without her they would have been powerless. She moved like a phantom, unseen by the intruders, guiding every system and protecting everyone. The station hummed, alive with energy and tension. Jarek knew this was only the beginning of the challenges they would face. But for now, the immediate danger was controlled. and the secretary had proven why she was assigned to him. He looked at her, awe and respect mixing with fear, and he knew that every day from now on would be filled with danger, mystery, and unexpected moments, because by treaty, she was his secretary, and there was no turning back. The intruder ship had retreated, but the station remained on high alert. Captain Jarek felt a mix of relief and unease, knowing the threat was not gone, only postponed. The alien secretary moved through the control hub, checking systems, monitoring crew, and analyzing every reading Jarek tried to follow. But he felt a growing sense of helplessness. Realizing how little he truly understood, she glanced at him briefly, her green eyes sharp and knowing. "Captain, we are not safe yet." Her calm tone carried authority, and he nodded, trusting her judgment without question. The station hummed, lights flickering slightly as energy flowed through the corridors. Jarek noticed crew members whispering, their faces pale with concern. The secretary walked past them, commanding attention without speaking. She reached the main console, fingers dancing over the holographic panels. Data streamed rapidly, numbers, symbols, and alien script moving too fast for Jarek to comprehend. She paused at one reading, frowning slightly. "Someone has tampered with our internal systems," she said. Jarek's stomach tightened, realizing this was worse than the asteroid threat. A hidden enemy within their own station could strike at any moment. The secretary moved swiftly, issuing orders to crew members, check all access points, reroute energy to defensive grids, monitor life support. Her voice was calm but urgent, and the crew obeyed instantly. Jarek watched her. Amazed at how she could handle multiple threats at once, he tried to speak, but she held up a hand, signaling him to wait. Every second mattered, and she could sense danger before it even appeared on the sensors. The anomaly in the system became clearer. A shadow within the data. It moved, shifted, and tried to hide, but she detected it. Jarek saw her eyes narrow, focus sharpening. "This is deliberate," she said. "Someone wants to disrupt the station, and they know our weaknesses," he swallowed, realizing how vulnerable they were. The station's defenses were strong, but even the best shields could not stop an internal saboteur. She turned to him, voice low but firm. "Captain, I need you to lead a team to investigate the lower decks. There may be intruders hiding among the crew." Jarek felt a surge of anxiety, but he nodded, understanding the importance of his role. He gathered a small team, armed and cautious, and followed her directions. The lower decks were dark and quiet, shadows stretching across walls. Every sound echoed, making their hearts race. They reached a corridor with damaged panels, sparks flying from exposed wires. Jarek signaled the team to proceed carefully, scanning for signs of life. A faint movement caught his eye, and he froze. The secretary's words echoed in his mind. "Trust your instincts, but stay alert." He stepped forward slowly. Weapon ready, a figure darted past, metallic and quick, almost invisible in the dim light. Jarek shouted a warning, and the team pursued. But the intruder vanished into another corridor. Back in the control hub, the secretary monitored their progress, analyzing patterns, predicting movements. Her fingers flew across the holographic interface, rerouting energy, sealing bulkheads, and preparing defenses. Jarek realized she was guiding them even from a distance, orchestrating every action. The intruder was clever, moving fast, trying to sabotage critical systems, but she anticipated each move, countering silently, efficiently, and without error. Hours passed in tense pursuit, shadows hiding threats at every turn. Jarek's team found evidence of tampering, tools left behind, energy conduits altered. He reported back to the secretary, and she nodded, understanding instantly. "We are close to discovering who is behind this," she said. Her calmness gave him strength, and he felt determination grow. They could not fail, not now, not with the station at risk. Finally, they cornered the intruder in a maintenance chamber. It was humanoid, but its features were distorted, alien and hostile. Jarek aimed his weapon. Hand steady, heart racing, the intruder lunged, but the secretary had already prepared. Energy fields activated, restraining the intruder. Shields humming around it, Jarek stared in awe, realizing she had anticipated this confrontation before it even began. She stepped forward, green eyes glowing, and spoke in a language the intruder could understand. It struggled, then stopped, recognizing her authority. Jarek approached cautiously, amazed at her control. "This is only the beginning," she said, turning to him. "We must remain vigilant. There are others watching, waiting for weaknesses, and they will test us again. He nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. His life, the crew, and the station itself depended on her, and he knew that every day from now on would bring challenges far greater than he had imagined. The alien secretary had proven her skill, authority, and intelligence, but the shadows in the system were only beginning to reveal their true danger. The station had settled into tense silence after the saboteur was captured. Captain Jarek felt exhausted but could not relax. The secretary walked calmly through the corridors, green eyes scanning every detail. Her presence was a constant reminder that danger could come at any moment. Jarek tried to focus, but questions kept swirling in his mind. Who had sent the saboteur, and how many more were hidden among the crew? She led him to the observation deck, overlooking the vast expanse of space. Stars twinkled far away, calm and distant. In contrast to the tension within the station, Jarek leaned against the railing, trying to gather his thoughts. The secretary stood beside him silently, observing the crew below. Finally, she spoke, voice quiet but firm. Not everyone here is loyal. Captain, there are whispers, hidden alliances, and those who do not follow the treaty's spirit. Jarek's stomach tightened. Realizing that some of his own crew might betray him, he turned to her, panic rising slightly. How do we know who we can trust? She glanced at him, expression unreadable. Trust is earned, Captain, but vigilance is key. We must watch carefully, observe behaviors, and react before threats become disasters. He nodded slowly, understanding the weight of responsibility. Every decision he made could save lives or doom the station. The secretary led him to the crew's quarters. Subtle and quiet, avoiding unnecessary attention, she scanned each room with a small device. Detecting unusual energy signatures, Jarek noticed her calm demeanor. Unshaken by the potential danger surrounding them, they arrived at the communications hub, and she began monitoring internal transmissions. Whispers, coded messages, and strange activity appeared on the screens. Her fingers moved swiftly, decoding signals, analyzing patterns, and tracing anomalies. Suddenly a message appeared, encrypted and hidden. Addressed to an unknown entity, Jarek felt a chill. Recognizing the words as betrayal, she pointed at the screen. Here, Captain. One of our own is communicating with outside forces. They plan to sabotage the station further. Jarek's heart sank, realizing the threat was closer than he had feared. He looked at her, eyes wide. What should we do? She smiled faintly, calm but confident. We expose them carefully without alerting others. We cannot let panic spread, or the enemy will succeed. They began investigating discreetly, moving through the station with precision. Crew members passed by, unaware of the scrutiny. Jarek watched their behavior, noting small details the secretary had taught him to observe. A nervous glance, a fidgeting hand, a hesitation in speech all became clues. Hours passed in careful observation, tension building with every moment. Finally, they identified the traitor, a junior officer who had seemed loyal but had hidden motives. Jarek felt a mix of anger and disbelief, realizing how easily someone could deceive him. The secretary instructed him, "Confront them carefully, Captain. Do not act rashly. We need their cooperation, or the station's mission could fail." Jarek approached the officer cautiously, voice steady. "We know about your messages. Explain yourself before this escalates further." The officer froze, eyes wide with fear, realizing they had been caught. They stammered, unable to deny the evidence, and finally confessed. Jarek felt a strange relief, but knew this was only one part of a larger threat. The secretary debriefed him afterward, her voice calm but serious. "Betrayal is never simple. Captain, it comes from fear, greed, or desperation. We must remain vigilant, anticipate moves, and protect the station at all costs." Jarek nodded, understanding that his role had changed completely. He was no longer just a captain managing a crew. He was part of a delicate balance of diplomacy, strategy, and survival, and the alien secretary was the key to maintaining that balance. As night fell over the station, the stars outside seeming peaceful, Jarek reflected on the day's events, realizing how fragile their security truly was. The intruders, the sabotage, and the betrayal within had tested them, but the secretary had guided them through every danger. Her calm authority, intelligence, and skill had prevented disaster. Jarek knew that challenges would continue to come, each more dangerous than the last, but he also knew that with her by his side, they had a chance to survive. The universe was full of shadows, and enemies lurked everywhere. Yet hope remained, anchored by trust, skill, and the bond forming between human and alien. Yarrick watched the stars, determined to protect the station, his crew, and the treaty. And he knew the path ahead would be long, dangerous, and full of surprises. The revelation of the traitor had shaken the station. Captain Jarrick felt the weight of responsibility heavier than ever. The alien secretary moved silently through the corridors, green eyes scanning every panel and crew member. Her calm confidence contrasted sharply with the tension around them. Yarrick tried to keep up, realizing that every step, every glance, and every decision could mean life or death. The saboteur had confessed, but she knew it was only a part of a larger plan. "Captain, the danger is not over," she said softly. "They sent this one to test us to see how we react. There are others watching, hidden, silent, waiting for the perfect moment to strike." Jarrick swallowed, the thought of hidden enemies inside the station making his stomach tighten. He nodded, trusting her judgment completely. She was their guide, their protector, and the only one who could anticipate threats before they happened. They returned to the control hub, where holographic panels displayed every system on the station. Her fingers flew over the interface, analyzing energy fluctuations, shield stability, and internal communications. Yarrick watched, fascinated and nervous, as she traced patterns humans could barely perceive. "Someone is moving through the maintenance corridors," she said. Voice calm but focused, Jarrick felt a chill, realizing they had an intruder hiding silently within their own station. The crew had no idea, unaware that danger walked among them. The secretary guided him through the process of detecting the hidden saboteur. Small sensors, energy scanners, and subtle indicators became tools for observation. They moved from corridor to corridor, silent, careful not to alert anyone. Yarrick's heart raced as shadows seemed to stretch and twist around every corner. He caught glimpses of movement, faint and fleeting. The secretary's eyes followed every anomaly, predicting paths, identifying threats. "It's clever," she said quietly. "But we are cleverer." They reached the lower maintenance decks. Dark and labyrinthine, sparks flew from old panels, creating shadows that danced across the walls. Every sound echoed unnaturally, heightening Jarrick's senses. They paused, listening, waiting for the saboteur to make a mistake. Suddenly, a panel shifted, revealing a hidden passage. Yarrick felt his heart pound as he realized the saboteur had a secret hideout. The secretary nodded, green eyes glowing faintly. "There," she whispered. "That is where they are hiding." They entered the passage cautiously, moving as silently as possible. Yarrick's weapon was ready, hands trembling slightly. The air smelled faintly of ozone and machinery, a metallic tang that heightened his awareness. The saboteur's presence was nearly invisible, but the secretary's detection devices hummed softly, giving them guidance. A shadow moved across the far wall, and the saboteur attempted to flee. Yarrick raised his weapon, but she motioned to wait. Predicting their path perfectly, the saboteur stumbled, trapped by the station's internal energy field she had activated remotely. Yarrick approached slowly, observing the restrained figure. The saboteur glared at him, fear and anger mixed in their eyes. The secretary spoke, voice calm but firm. "Your actions jeopardized everyone here. You underestimated the humans and their allies, and you underestimated me." Jarrick watched in awe as she maintained authority over both human and alien. The saboteur had no choice but to comply, fully aware they were outmatched. With the saboteur captured, the station breathed a sigh of relief. Yarrick felt exhaustion settle into his bones, yet he could not rest. The secretary moved to the main console. Monitoring the station's outer defenses, she activated new security protocols, locking down vulnerable systems. "Captain, vigilance is constant," she reminded him. "The enemy is patient, silent, and cunning. We must be ready at all times. Even a single lapse could be catastrophic." Jarrick nodded, realizing that his role had evolved far beyond command. He was now part of a delicate balance where trust, intelligence, and quick action could mean survival. Hours passed as they secured the station, repaired damaged systems, and reassured the crew. Yarrick noticed how effortlessly she inspired confidence, how she could guide without raising her voice. He realized that without her, the station might already be lost. Her calm authority and strategic mind were the backbone of their survival. And though he still had much to learn, he knew that with her by his side, they had a chance to face any threat. The universe was vast, dangerous, and full of unknown enemies. But together, human and alien, they could navigate the shadows. Jarrick looked at her, gratitude and determination mixing in his heart, and he understood that the silent saboteur was only one of many challenges to come. The station had settled into an uneasy calm. Captain Jarek felt the weight of every event pressing on him. The intruders, the saboteurs, and hidden threats had tested their skill and resolve. Yet he knew the universe held far greater dangers. The alien secretary moved with purpose, green eyes scanning every system. Her calm authority reassured the crew, giving them courage in the face of unknown peril. Suddenly, the station sensors detected a massive anomaly. A rogue fleet larger than anything humans had ever seen was heading toward them. Jarek felt his chest tighten, realizing that this was the ultimate test. The secretary's eyes glowed softly as she studied the readings. "They are coming," she said, voice calm but firm, "and they will not negotiate. We must be ready to defend. Escape or outsmart them. Your role, Captain, is to coordinate the human crew. I will handle strategy, defenses, and diplomacy with the alien fleets we are allied with." Jarek nodded. Taking a deep breath, he had learned much from her over the past days. How to observe, anticipate, and trust instincts guided by knowledge. He moved quickly, issuing commands to the crew, rerouting energy, preparing shields, and securing vulnerable areas. The station hummed with energy, lights flickering as systems powered up to maximum capacity. The crew worked efficiently, inspired by both his leadership and the secretary's quiet authority. The rogue fleet appeared on the holographic screens, dark ships moving in coordinated formations. They emitted signals that interfered with communications and attempted to disable external sensors. Jarek felt fear creeping in, but he pushed it aside. Remembering the lessons the secretary had taught him, he activated emergency protocols, coordinating with allied ships in the system. The secretary moved among the holograms, predicting enemy patterns, activating energy fields, and issuing silent commands that Jarek and the crew could follow. The first strike came suddenly, a wave of energy weapons targeting the station's shields. Lights flickered, panels sparking, and alarms screamed. Jarek shouted instructions to maintain shield integrity and redirect power to critical systems. The secretary's calculations moved faster than any human mind could comprehend. She adjusted frequencies, shield alignments, and countermeasures with fluid precision. The enemy fleet adapted, testing weaknesses, probing for vulnerabilities. But she was always ahead, anticipating their moves. Guiding Jarek and the crew with confidence, hours passed in intense struggle. The station shaking under repeated attacks. Yet they survived, shields holding, systems stable, crew focused. Jarek felt exhaustion but also pride, realizing how far they had come together. The secretary's presence had transformed them from a frightened crew into a coordinated force. Then unexpectedly a signal arrived, a communication from the rogue fleet's leader. It was a challenge, a direct threat, demanding surrender or annihilation. The secretary read the message and turned to Jarek. "This is a test of trust and courage. We cannot yield, we cannot panic. We must respond with strategy and intelligence, not force alone." Jarek nodded, understanding that this was more than combat. It was diplomacy, negotiation, and cunning. They prepared a response, using holographic messages and coded signals. The secretary orchestrated every move, predicting the enemy's reactions. Minutes stretched, tension filling the control hub. Finally, the rogue fleet paused. Analyzing, unsure how to respond, Jarek felt a spark of hope, realizing that intelligence and strategy could win where brute force might fail. After tense hours, the fleet retreated, signals indicating respect and acknowledgement. The station systems hummed steadily again. Alarms quiet, lights returning to normal. Jarek sank into his chair. Exhausted, but relief filled him. The secretary approached, green eyes glowing softly. "You performed well, Captain. Your leadership combined with cooperation ensured the station survived." He looked at her, gratitude and admiration mixing in his heart. You saved all of us," he said. Voice shaky, she shook her head slightly. "We saved all of us together, human and alien. That is the purpose of the treaty, Captain, to unite, to protect, and to survive as one." The crew gathered, exhausted but proud, and Jarek realized how much they had accomplished. They had faced intruders, saboteurs, and a rogue fleet. Yet through it all, the secretary had guided them, teaching patience, strategy, and trust. He understood that his life would never be the same. The station, once just a routine workplace, had become a place of lessons, challenges, and alliances. and the alien secretary had become more than an assignment. She was a teacher, protector, and partner. Jarek felt a sense of hope, knowing that no matter what dangers awaited in the universe, together they could face them, overcome them, and survive. The stars outside shimmered peacefully as if acknowledging their victory, and Jarek finally understood the meaning of the treaty. Not rules or assignments, but trust, unity, and courage in the face of the unknown.